Let's look behind the mods for Kaupenjoe's Powerful Parkour Blocks. Alright, we find ourselves back in the challenge once more, and in this Behind the Mods, we're taking a look at Kaupenjoe's Powerful Parkour Blocks. An additional entertainment style video for this as well, of course, on Kaupenjoe. I'll link that once again in the description and in the card above. But for the time being, we actually want to take a look at the code. So for this one, we're actually going to take a look at the Forge code. However, Forge 119.3, 118.2, Forge, Fabric 119.2, and Fabric 118.2 are all available in the GitHub repository, so there should be some overlap. However, the Fabric ones do use the official mappings, because then it's just easier, let's be honest. Regardless though of this, let's actually take a look. So we do have an effect block. Overall, honestly, the effect block is not that complicated. It is an entity block, like it has a block entity, but most of the interesting stuff, right, really is happening on the custom effect block entity. So if you take a look at the effect block entity, we can see that we have an ID. So this is just the ID of what effect is going to be used, because in the mob effects over here, they are actually registered with IDs, and you can actually get different mob effects by their ID. So this is why I'm just saving the ID instead of the mob effect, because I can't actually save the ID via NBT data anyway. So I was like, you know what, let's just, save the ID, and that's fine. I'm going to save the duration and also the effect level over here. And honestly, that's pretty much most of what I'm doing here. Most of the rest of this stuff is just for, well, loading and saving, creating the menu, and most of the interesting stuff is actually happening in the screen handler, I've called it in this case, which is just the menu. So it's called the screen handler, but it's nothing interesting going on here. However, the screen, oh boy, the screen. Let's take a look at the screen. So this is probably the most extensive class for it, and also this means that there's probably going to be a few more tutorials and topics and courses in future stuff that are going to be very interesting indeed, because I finally figured out both edit boxes. So this is basically where you can type stuff into a GUI, and also I figured out nope, this not this one. This one, item image buttons, or also normal buttons. Incredibly, they're actually not as hard to use as I once expected. So I'm actually pretty happy. Overall, the class, could probably be a little bit cleaner, but overall, I'm not too worried about it. Mainly, the main thing of this is the image buttons. So you might have seen the GUI, and we'll display it here. So the GUI basically just has a bunch of buttons, and it has one button for each mob effect that it finds. So basically, we're literally just going through. So we're going through 1 to 33, which gets us all IDs over here. So we're just having a for loop. We're going through this. And as we're going through this, we're just adding one image button per mob effect, and that's pretty much it. We're just changing X and Y coordinates. The size always stays the same, things like that. And that's, pretty much most of what we're doing. We also have a tooltip. So when we hover over this, we're actually getting the name of the actual effect that we're hovering over. So that's pretty much all that there is to it. And we have a close button, and yeah, the update block entity is probably the big one. So we're just making sure that, both what we ever put in the duration box as well as the level box is both numbers, right? If this is possible. And if it is, then we're just sending it to the server. And this was one of the things that was almost the hardest, not necessarily because the effect synchronization is hard, but because there was an issue with not being able to get the block entity in here. So that was a very, very strange thing there, but I was able to, figure it out. I was managed to do it, and that is pretty much it. So if you are in need on how to add image buttons or normal buttons, then this might just be the repository for you to take a look at. Otherwise, really, I mean, it's pretty cool, but yeah, that's pretty much all that there's to it, so there's nothing insane going on. And then once the three integers here are synchronized, right, in the effect block itself, when a living entity steps over it, we're literally just getting the block entity at this position, getting the effect, the duration, the effect level, and that's pretty much it. Now, one thing that you might ask is, okay, how do you change the textures? Well, it's just an integer property that I also changed, so inside of the effect block entity here, I'm pretty sure when I set the effect right here, you can see we're basically setting the block and then also making sure that this is synchronized. So we're just setting the block state with the value of the ID, and then inside of the models, inside of the block states, you can see we're just basically going through. This is definitely not the best way of doing it. I don't know if there's a different way of doing it, to be honest. There might be. So there might be another way of doing it with maybe layers and having different layers for the texture. However, this is the way that I've gotten it to work. Also, I am very unsure if I could expand this to also work with modded mob effects. That would be, it would be pretty awesome, but it would also run into the issue of the effect block, then probably having like different pages, and then you have to switch between the pages. So I'm unsure if I'm willing to ever add that to this. I might be, who knows, but for the time being, I'm really hoping that this could be like a really cool creative thing that some people might be able to use for their custom parkour maps. And this is also why I have it in, all of the different versions. Hopefully that's going to be really cool to see. And maybe you're going to be the one to make a cool map. If you do, and just tag me on Twitter. I'm at tkaupenjoe or at Kaupenjoe. That's totally fine. That would be really cool. Otherwise, that's it for this Behind the Mods. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. So, yeah.